Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with my colleagues from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We're looking forward to speaking to you today on our CFPB COVID-19 resources for financial practitioners. I am going to sort of moderate and also talk about the CFPB FinEx program, which many of you may be familiar with. I had the pleasure of attending your conference in Portland, and I got to meet many of you at the exhibit table. So I'm excited to be back presenting with you. The CFPB FinEx program provides training, conferences, bulk educational materials, research, and other resources to financial education practitioners. I am going to read our standard disclaimer, go through my slides, then I'm going to introduce each of our speakers, and then they will move forward with each of their presentations. So first, you can advance to the next slide, please. A disclaimer. This presentation is being made by a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau representative, actually representatives, on behalf of the Bureau. It does not constitute legal interpretation, guidance, or advice of the Bureau. Any opinions or views stated by the presenters are the presenter's own views and may not represent the Bureau's views. The inclusion of links or references to third-party sites does not necessarily reflect the Bureau's endorsement of the third-party sites, the views expressed on those sites, or the products and services that are offered by those sites. The Bureau has not vetted these third parties, their content, or any products or services they may offer. There may be other possible entities or resources that are not listed that may also serve your needs. The Bureau's purpose is to regulate the offering and provision of consumer financial products and services under the federal consumer financial laws and educate and empower consumers to make better informed financial decisions. I wanted to share with you a slide that is sort of our landing page for the adult ed practitioners. Many of you may already be familiar with it, but if you're not, the link at the bottom is how you get to that page. And on that page, as well as every page on our website, you'll see in the top right corner, submit a complaint. And you can use that link to work with your clients to submit complaints if they're having challenges with financial institutions that they're not able to resolve themselves. The next thing I wanted to point out on this is that in the middle of the right grayed out column, connect with us, you can enter your email address on that page if you want to be on our mailing list as a subscriber for the FinEx program. We also list our upcoming webinars in the middle. These two have passed, but the second one is the one we're doing for you today. We did it for our audience then. And also, if you look at the very bottom right, there's Join Financial Education Discussion Group. That's a LinkedIn page, and you are free once you join it to post any non-sales related announcements that you want to make about events you're having. And it's okay if it's a training session and you're maybe charging a little for it or something like that, or a publication, but just not blatant sales, and it should be related to financial education. Okay, with that, I wanted to just give you all of the different links that I provided on one slide and our email address. The second bullet, there's not a bullet there, but the second paragraph, so to speak, is CFPB_FinEx@cfpb.gov. That is, I'm actually on slide 5. I realize I'm used to advancing my own slides and forgot to tell you. But that's the email you can send to if you have any questions about anything. Now I'd like to just take a moment and introduce our wonderful panel that we have here today. Besides myself, we have, and I'm not going to do these in order actually, well, because I have my, I have a different bio up, but Jill Wheeler serves as a special populations advisor in the Office of Community Affairs at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. She develops and implements strategies to improve the financial well-being of vulnerable consumers. Her areas of focus include people with limited English proficiency, rural communities, and people with disabilities. Previously, as Chief of Programs at Hispanic Access Foundation, she oversaw nationwide programs promoting economic empowerment, youth leadership, and civic engagement. Nelson Akradulu serves as the Consumer Response Specialist in the Office of Servicemember Affairs at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. In addition to consumer response, he helps coordinate OSA's direct-to-service member outreach and new media engagement. He's a Marine veteran with more than 20 years of experience in strategic communications and marketing in the military and private sectors. Prior to joining the Bureau, he worked in the Department of Defense's Office of Wounded Warrior Care and Transition Policy, coordinating strategic communications for Transition Assistance Program. Kate Mullen is a policy analyst in CFPB section for students and young consumers. She focuses on repayment issues. Previously, she was a high school math teacher and an education researcher. Leslie is a youth financial education analyst at the CFPB. She is a former business teacher, instructional designer, curriculum supervisor, and developer. She advises on K-12 financial education program issues and the development of nationwide approaches to support K-12 financial education, and she'll be focusing on the high school age today. Erin Scheifele joined the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in January 2017 as a content specialist in the Office for Older Americans. Prior to joining the Bureau, she served as the Vice President of Grassroots at the American Bankers Association and was responsible for encouraging bankers to engage with their members of Congress. She previously worked in AARP's Education and Outreach Department, developing resources on financial security issues for the 50-plus population. Erin obtained a bachelor's degree in English and a master's degree in educational psychology from the University of Virginia. So I think I've captured all of our wonderful speakers today. I'm very proud to be with my colleagues as they share the excellent work that they do at the Bureau. And at this point, I am going to move to slide 6, which is titled COVID-19 and Student Loan Borrowers in Repayment, and hand this off to Kate. Kate, are you ready?
I am. Thank you, Heather. Good afternoon, everyone. And just up at the top here, I'll mention our students' email is just simply students@cfpb.gov. So if you have any questions afterwards, you can please reach us there. So if you can advance to the next slide, please. And that's the contents. And then you can actually go on to the next one. Excuse me. So I just wanted to get one slide in here that had a bunch of reliable sources of information about the CARES Act and student loans. So that's especially the top 3 links. General information can be found there. We have the consumerfinance.gov/coronavirus has not just student loan topics, but lots of different resources related to the pandemic. And then at the bottom, there's some bullets for borrowers' individual situations. You're going to hear me say a lot today that they need to be talking to their servicers and to their lenders. We know a lot of student loan borrowers aren't exactly sure who all are their lenders and servicers, so there's some resources here for figuring that out, including the annual credit report, and then for federal student loans, they can check out studentaid.gov. Financial aid offices are another important source of information, as well as you want to be aware of state-specific directives, of course. Okay, advance to the next slide, please. The other thing I wanted to get in at the beginning was a warning about scams. We're already seeing quite a few scams asking for fees or personal information in order to access various types of debt relief. We want to make sure that lenders know that the CARES Act relief requires no application or fees. It should all happen pretty much automatically. And later on this fall, we might start seeing similar scams around FAFSA completion, financial appeals, and we just want to encourage borrowers to work directly with their servicers and lenders. There are some doc prep services that, while they are legal, they probably aren't the best use of a borrower's limited funds. And if a borrower believes they have been the victim of a scam, they should contact their servicer, contact the FTC, and the state attorney general may also be accepting complaints. Advance the slide, please. Great. So what does the CARES Act do for student loans? On federally held student loans, it is an automatic suspension of payments and interest between March 13th and September 30th. That's probably the biggest provision. This is just a pause on payments. It is not a subsidy or forgiveness. We've had quite a few questions from borrowers wondering how this is going to, reduce their loan balance, and the answer is it doesn't. What it does do for forgiveness borrowers, and we'll get a little bit more into that later, is a little bit different. But if you're on a standard non-forgiveness plan, it simply adds 6 or 7 months to the life of the loan. What is a little bit different from normal forbearances is that the accrued interest will not be capitalized on September 30th, but that's something that borrowers should check their accounts to make sure. And then the suspended payments are not missed payments. They should be reported to bureaus as fulfilled payments. Advance to the next slide, please. Cool. So more about this federally held eligibility. That's going to be the vast majority of federal loans issued since 2010. There are some that are not eligible for relief, and they are generally under the FEL program or the Perkins loans, and those are held by commercial lenders or school lenders. Some of them are federally, it's very confusing because some of them are federally held, but some are not. And so the servicer is going to be the person, or going to be the source of the information about whether they are federally held or not. And of course, private loans are, owned by banks, credit unions, schools, other private entities. None of those are covered by the CARES Act. So that's, millions of borrowers who are not eligible for CARES Act relief. Next slide, please. And then they do have other options. Department of Education has issued some guidance about the type of relief that Perkins and FEL loan lenders can provide, including forbearance, interest waiver, stop collections, and then they require that missed payments should not count against reestablishing eligibility or loan rehabilitation. So again, just talking to the servicer is going to be really important. If the servicer is not offering comparable relief, they might still have income-driven repayment plans. They might be willing to give them a normal deferment or forbearance. And then the final option that is a possibility, but is something that borrowers are going to want to think really carefully about is consolidation. The main thing about consolidation into a direct consolidated loan, it does make the loan eligible for CARES Act relief, as well as for some other types of income-driven repayment that are only eligible or only applicable for direct loans. But every individual should crunch their own numbers first, because it will restart the clock for other types of forgiveness. And then there's just some things to think about with accrued interest getting capitalized. There might be a slight increase in interest. So by the time that the consolidation goes through, the number of remaining suspended payments may not compensate for these other costs. Next slide, please. And then private student loans are going to want to think about asking their servicers for, they might also be offering forbearance or waiving fees and penalties, other options, but it's all going to depend on the servicer as well as the state directives. Next slide, please. For borrowers in default on federally held loans, the Department of Education has stopped collection on those. So that includes the garnishment of wages, the offset of tax refunds, and the offset of Social Security benefits. We have heard, especially with the garnishment of wages, that there has been delays there. So they are entitled to any kind of garnishment that happened on or after March 13th. That should be refunded, and that can be, I think, done through the servicer. If they're having any questions, Ed has a special default resolution group, and the phone number is here. That phone number also appears on the Department of Education's coronavirus page, and that would be the group to call if a borrower is having issues there. Suspended payments do count towards loan rehabilitation, and that applies to both federally held and then also some of the non-federally held FEL and Perkins loans. The CARES Act, of course, does not do anything for private student loans in default, but there have been pauses by some borrowers, some lenders and collectors, either voluntarily or due to state directives. Next slide, please. Okay, so for borrowers who are already enrolled in IDR, income-driven repayment, and public service loan forgiveness, or PSLF, the suspended payments do count towards their forgiveness. These are both time-bound forgiveness programs. So, other than that, they want to treat, they want to continue managing their loans as normal. And if given some kind of extension on income recertification, we are advising borrowers to go ahead and do all their stuff on their normal timeline, unless there's some really great reason not to. And then just like in normal times, if a borrower sees a change in income, they should ask their servicer to recalculate their monthly payment. And then for PSLF, Ed has made it very clear that even if an otherwise eligible employee is laid off at this time, the suspended payments will not count towards their PSLF repayment if the employee has been laid off. But we want to remind borrowers that it's not like all is lost, because the 120 qualifying payments do not have to be consecutive. So even if they don't get all of the suspended payments counted towards their PSLF forgiveness, it doesn't restart the clock the way that consolidation does. Next slide, please. And then the next few slides, I just have some resources for advising consumers. Again, we have the blog page on consumerfinance.gov. We have your goals, which I think Jill is going to speak to in greater depth, but there are some great resources there for student loan borrowers. Next slide, please. We wanted to issue some thoughts on the question of whether student loan borrowers who can afford to make payments at this time, whether they should go ahead and do that. And there are some great reasons to, because once the interest accrued prior to March 13th is paid off, those payments would go directly to the principal, which would obviously reduce greatly the amount of interest that they are accruing going forward. And it would avoid adding 6 additional months to their payoff date if they're not on a forgiveness plan. But there's also some reasons not to. Certainly, if they're on PSLF or another time-bound forgiveness plan, they would absolutely not want to make extra payments at this time, because there's just no benefit to doing so. And they also want to take into consideration how secure their income is as the crisis continues to unfold. So the compromise that we are recommending consumers consider is take that normal student loan payment, put it into savings during this pause time, and then they can plan to use it as an extra payment against the principal later on, but that way they'll still have it on hand as the pandemic continues to unfold in case they encounter an unexpected expense or income loss. Next slide, please. And then here's some just basic next steps going forward for consumers to actively manage their debt. They want to make sure that they know, who their loans belong to, who they're being serviced by. They want to make sure that their servicers have their current contact information and can get in touch with them. They're going to be getting, for instance, communication starting in August about resuming payments in October. And they want to make sure that the servicer can get those communications to them. They want to be actively monitoring their loan and bank accounts to confirm that their payments and interest actually have been suspended and that they've gotten any refunds that they were due. And they want to check after September 30th to make sure that their interest accrued previously to the suspension period is not capitalized, which is, in other words, added to the interest-bearing principal. If they run into trouble with affording their payments, we really encourage them to reach out to the servicers as soon as possible and be honest about the situation. Keep good notes on their conversations with servicers. And then if they are considering making a change to their loan or their repayment plan, take the time to really understand fully what the impacts will be. We have some items here they want to make sure they ask about, including interest rate, when interest will accrue, what it does to the lifetime cost of the loan. And we want to encourage borrowers to call back until they get those questions answered in a way that they feel they fully understand. And then the final step we'd like borrowers to take is in October, we recommend that they check their credit report again to make sure that the suspended payments were reported correctly. Next slide, please. And then last thing here, we have a blog coming out soon with some financial terms and concepts. We also have a sample letter for dealing with collectors, a sample letter for instructing servicers how to apply extra payments correctly if they want to do that during the pause. And then if they are having trouble getting a response from a servicer, a debt collector, or a lender, they can reach out to us and submit a complaint, and we will help them get a response. So thank you for your time, and I'm going to pass it on to Erin Scheifele from the Office of Older Americans.
Thank you so much, Kate. My name's Erin Scheifele. I am from the Office for Older Americans, and we are the only federal agency office focused on consumer financial protection for adults 62 and older. And we really focus on more than just 62 and older, but I'm going to share with you a couple of specific resources around the coronavirus, give you some ideas of things that you can use to maybe educate older adults about those different issues. And then we'll talk a little bit about scams, and then I'll pass it to the next CFPBer. So let's go to slide 21. On this page, there are 3 blogs that are specifically dealing with issues that might affect older adults. The first one is tips for financial caregivers. So that might be actually for anyone of any age who is helping to manage the finances for either an older, maybe parent, an older relative or friend, or managing the finances for someone who's unable to do it for some other reason. And so in this blog, we share a little bit about ways you can connect with that person while still, of course, observing social distancing. We also have some online and mobile banking tips for people who are new to that. In this case, we target older adults, as we know that the adoption of online and mobile banking isn't as strong in that sector. So if you do have any clients who are on the fence about getting online and managing their accounts that way, now might be a good time to help walk them through it. And a lot of banks and credit unions have some really good tutorials on their websites to share exactly how their customers might do that. And then the final blog is about planning finances for an uncertain future. So this might be if someone is all of a sudden falls ill or is otherwise incapacitated, there are some tips as well as a quiz and just some other things to think about for what you might do or who you might tap to help you with your finances in those situations. So if you go to slide 22, you'll see that some helpful resources that might address some of these issues during this pandemic are, I'm going to go actually from the bottom to the top. The last one on the list is the Planning for Diminished Capacity Guide. That's mentioned in the blog post that I just shared, that Preparing for an Uncertain Future, as are the next 2, Virtual Valuables and Share Information with Your Spouse Now to Avoid Problems Later. So these are the 3 resources that are managed or that are mentioned in that other blog. We also have the Reverse Mortgage Disaster Guide. Reverse mortgages are a product that is specifically for adults 62 and older to help them get equity out of their home. It's a really specific and really niche product that doesn't work for a ton of people, but for the people who it does work for, or the people who are current reverse mortgage borrowers, we have this really great disaster guide that can help them figure out exactly what they need to do to make sure they're meeting the obligations of their reverse mortgage loan. So that could be really helpful too. On slide 23, I'll mention that we have 3 resources that talk a lot about scams. The first one was really the first blog that the CFPB put out during this COVID-19 situation, Protect Yourself Financially. There's a ton of great information in that blog post, including specific information for older adults and specifically information on how to avoid scams, which are, of course, going to increase during a time like this. The second on the list is Beware of Scams. We worked with the FTC. We often work with the Federal Trade Commission to kind of find out what scams they're hearing about, what scams they're trying to prosecute those scammers, and then we've shared information specifically on what you might be able to do and what resources would be helpful. The last one is a joint blog that we did with the Federal Trade Commission on avoiding scams while finding help. So if you have clients who are older adults and they have been staying close to home, maybe neighbors or family are helping them with grocery shopping or picking up prescriptions, things like that. But if they're not, or if those folks are farther away, we just give some tips on what to look out for. There have been reports of scammers going to door to door, offering help to not just older adults, but really anybody. And then we've heard about quite a few really specific scams targeting maybe Medicare ID and working on, calling saying that they want to send them an air quality kit or a coronavirus treatment or vaccine, that kind of thing, and filing an unauthorized Medicare charge for that, or saying, oh, this is free, just give me your Medicare ID card as well as your credit card number, all you'll pay for is the shipping, that kind of thing. So we discussed how you might find really reliable and safe help during this time for older adults. And so on slide 24, there are some scam prevention resources from the CFPB that really would help anyone, but I think in particular are great for older adults, in part because of their format. Many are in a larger type with clear and simple graphics. The first is Money Smart for older adults. This is an awareness program that we collaborated with the FDIC, another bank regulator, the one that insures all of our deposits. So I'm sure you're familiar with those initials, FDIC. We worked with them to create this program where an instructor leads a class or a discussion around different kinds of scams and fraud, including more generally elder financial exploitation, like caregiving scams or abuse of an instrument like a power of attorney, that kind of thing. The Money Smart for Older Adults guide is obviously something that would be taught by a class, maybe by a volunteer. During this time when we are staying apart, I would encourage any of those of you who deal with older adults to literally copy and paste entire sections from that guide and get it out to older adults. We have a resource guide which you can download, and actually our bulk distribution site has reopened, so you can begin ordering. It'll take a while because they're taking care of that backlog. But you can actually order free bulk copies of this, and you could distribute those, or like I said, download and print from it to share with the older adults you serve. The next thing on the list are our fraud prevention placemats. I'm not sure how many of you have seen these. They are about 10 by 14 inch paper placemats that you can order in bulk for free with really simple, eye-catching scam prevention material. But what we've done in this time of the coronavirus is we have created 8.5 by 11, so regular sized one pagers. Some of them are 2 pages, front and back, that will share an information or an activity with an older adult that'll help them learn the warning signs, learn how to spot a scam. So for example, we have a crossword puzzle that will give some information around identity theft, a word search that will give an older adult a really simple idea of what kinds of scams they could encounter. So it's a great thing for people to do, especially now when we're all kind of bored at home. And then you can talk about it maybe over a Zoom call or a FaceTime or a phone call. The next item on the list are managing someone else's money guides. This is a series of 4 guides for financial caregivers who are in a true fiduciary role, meaning a really formal legal instrument that gives them access and ability to manage the finances of someone else. So those would be an agent under a power of attorney, a trustee or conservator, a representative payee, or a VA fiduciary. And those guides are really walking fiduciaries through their responsibilities and making sure that they take those responsibilities on in an appropriate and legal way. And it includes a lot of tips on protecting someone's assets from fraud and scams, as well as how to recognize it and how to report it. And then last but certainly not least on this page are the Protecting Residents from Financial Exploitation Guide. This is actually a guide that we developed for assisted living and nursing facility staff, but I think it could be worth a read. It's a free download. Could be worth a read for just about anybody who's working with older adults during this time, or any population that may be a little bit more likely to be targeted by scammers. So definitely give that one a read as well. And if you'll go to slide 25, our website is consumerfinance.gov/older-Americans. I would encourage you, as Kate did, and as each of the next panelists will do, to visit our specific coronavirus-related page. And then my information is there on the screen as well, and I would welcome your feedback, what you're hearing from any older adults you serve in this way, what they might be in need of in terms of financial education during this time. And with that, I will turn it over to Nelson. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nelson Caradelu, and I'm with the Office of Servicemember Affairs at the CFPB. Today, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what our office does and the resources we provide for service members and the military community as a whole. But before I begin, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone for joining us here today. We've given a few of these presentations over the last 2 weeks, and like the others, I know all of you are probably incredibly busy trying to get information out either to the public or to your clients on COVID-19 resources. So thanks for taking time to join us here today. So with that, let's get into it. Next slide, please. The Office of Servicemember Affairs, or OSA as we're often called, was established to serve and protect the needs of service members, veterans, and military families in the consumer marketplace. Now, every service member and military family has a unique financial story. Our job is to listen to their issues, we analyze the problems they raise, and we implement solutions where we can, and also serve as their voice here at the Bureau. Now, our mission under statute has 3 central mandates. We educate and empower service members and their families to make better informed decisions regarding consumer financial products and services. We monitor and analyze consumer complaints submitted by service members and their families. And we also coordinate with other federal and state agencies regarding consumer protection measures for service members, veterans, and military families to improve the overall marketplace for them. Next slide, please. Now, one of the ways we go about meeting those mandates is we provide resources for the military community. A few years ago, we started taking a more holistic approach at looking at what service members, military families, and veterans experience during the course of their careers and the resources they might need to make better informed decisions at critical points along their consumer journey. Now, that holistic approach led to the development of the military consumer life cycle. You can see an example of the life cycle map on your screen now. The military consumer life cycle map identifies points along a military career, beginning with the signing of the enlistment contract at the recruiter's office, through basic training and advanced individual training, and also through all the subsequent steps in both an individual and a military family's life and military career until retirement, and in some cases, even beyond that. This holistic approach, it affords us the opportunity for greater collaboration within the Bureau to develop resources for service members. And it also gives us an opportunity to partner with our valued interagency, federal, state, and local government partners at various levels to take actions on issues and also create the educational resources that empower service members and the military community. Now, one of the most important advantages of the military life cycle approach is that it not only gives us the opportunity to examine the financial challenges and opportunities that soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coasties face over an extended career, but also during immediate circumstances. Now, today, for most service members and military families, those circumstances center around the financial impact of the coronavirus, like much of the country. Next slide, please. So as the public health crisis posed by COVID-19 continues, many Americans are experiencing a financial shock. Now, service members, veterans, and military families are no exception. So as you've heard from Aaron and a few of the other and our other presenter, the Bureau has launched a webpage dedicated to highlighting COVID-19 resources that consumers can use to protect themselves and their finances during this pandemic. The page hosts information on topics such as mortgage relief, student loans, avoiding scams. It also lists information for special populations like older Americans, small business owners, and service members. Now, for service members specifically, the page links to our blog that lists a host of resources that service members can tap into right now to help them get immediate financial help and also to maintain their long-term financial well-being during the pandemic. Now, the resources for service members and veterans and military families are actually kind of spread over several different federal agencies and a few organizations. But some of the more notable ones are emergency grants and zero-interest loans from the military aid societies, special pay and allowances such as hazard duty pay, BAS, which is basic allowance for subsistence, FSA, which is family separation allowance, and also travel per diem allowances from the DoD for service members who are either ordered to isolate or self-monitor for COVID-19, and also military families that were affected by the Stop Movement Order that was issued a few weeks ago. Mortgage forbearances are also authorized for service members and veterans with VA home loans or other federally backed mortgages. GI Bill updates have been made that allow student veterans to continue getting their GI Bill benefits even if their classes have converted from full-time in-person classes to online classes. And of course, you know, the CFPB's consumer complaint system. If service members have or are experiencing an issue with a financial service, a product, or servicer, they can come to us, submit a complaint, and we'll investigate that complaint and try to essentially get them an answer as best as we can. Now, those are just some of the resources that are listed in the blog. I encourage you to visit the page. The URL is on screen right now. Read the Service Member COVID-19 Resources blog, as well as the other information that's there, and pass it along if you can. Next slide, please. Now, as I mentioned earlier, OSA monitors consumer complaints from the military community. We actually take those and package them all together after we've done some analysis and release an annual report every year. We released our last annual report on service member consumer complaints on April 3rd of this year. The report reveals that the top service member complaint issues received in fiscal year 2019 were on credit and credit reporting, debt collection, mortgages, and credit cards. There are definitely more, but those were our top 5 there. And we're also actively monitoring consumer complaints now related to COVID-19 to ensure that we know and understand the financial challenges that service members and their families are facing due to the pandemic. As of this morning, a total of 646 service member complaints linked to COVID-19 have been received. The top issues so far have been pretty consistent. So they've been things like requests for mortgage forbearances not being honored, issues with the processing for applying for refinancing on loans, debt collection, which is always an issue, disputing items on credit reports, checking accounts, and the automatic stopping of automatic payments such as auto loans. Next slide, please. So even during the pandemic, service members and military families are continuing to make important financial decisions like buying homes and cars, using credit, paying for college, and just making everyday purchases. I mean, life goes on. We have consumer tools that they can use, some of which you've already heard about. And we also have online resources they can use to help improve their money management skills, navigate purchases, and help make those informed financial decisions about everyday products while they're continuing to do the things that they do every day. Now, specifically for young service members, we have a program that's called Misadventures in Money Management, or MIM for short. It's our flagship online educational product. It was designed to immerse service members in real-life financial scenarios like marriage, deployment, permanent change of station, but not just immerse them in those scenarios, but also the consequences of their choices in those scenarios. And it offers interactive training on topics such as the importance of building savings, how to avoid impulse purchases, how debt can affect the military career, which is incredibly important for service members now, since the way a lot of security clearances are being monitored and processes have changed, and also protections under the Service Member Civil Relief Act. Now, one of the unique features of MIM is that it excuse me, one of the neat features of MIM is that it provides service members with a learning environment that uses the latest interactive gaming techniques to actually make it a fun experience to actually go through. MIM allows each user to customize a learning experience with 6 current characters. And you can see the characters on your screen now. They're Cruz, Angela, James, Maya, and Dirk, and Xavier. The program is free. It's available on MIM.gov, which is the website. It's available to any member of the U.S. Armed Forces, Guard, and Reserve, so they can just log on and play anytime they want. And as they're going through, they'll definitely get in a world of financial information that'll help them as they make their consumer financial purchases. Next slide, please. Finally, this is our contact information. You'll see on screen. You can please reach out to us anytime at the Office of Service Member Affairs, or you can reach me directly. Again, my name is Nelson Caradolu. We have resources for service members. We have a ton of information that we're trying to get out to them, not just for COVID-19, but just their everyday purchases and things that they want to do. So please take the time to review the information. Contact us if you have questions, and pass along if you can. And with that, I will pass it on to our next presenter.
This is Summer. I just want to say the information's on the slides that we will be sending out. I know it was blank on the screen for most of this time. Sorry, go ahead.
Great. Thank you all. This is Jill Wheeler from the Office of Community Affairs. And like my colleagues, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We recognize it's a challenging moment for everyone personally and professionally. And I will be presenting on some additional resources that we hope will be very helpful to you in many ways. I represent the Office of Community Affairs, which focuses on serving a variety of populations that may lack full access to financial services, including people with low to moderate incomes, with low wealth, and people who in other ways are financially excluded or vulnerable. So in the best of times, this constitutes a significant portion of our population. And in the current pandemic, we're finding certainly a number of new people who are finding themselves in the financially vulnerable category or experiencing some type of financial crisis. I'll move on to the diagram on slide 34 that shows a little about how our tools are designed to work. The Your Money, Your Goals suite of financial empowerment resources is designed for frontline social service staff and social service providers. It's really designed for people like many of you who are meeting one-on-one with clients or people they serve, and the materials are designed to give some background tools, tips, and advice behind the tools that can be used by individual consumers. We typically work through a train the trainer model with a training cohort for organizations during the year, and then coming up, starting in the month of June, we'll be offering some free public webinars going module by module, one module per week. So I'll talk about how you can sign up for those at the end. If we go on to the next slide, this gives an overview of the Your Money, Your Goals resources. And when we talk about financial empowerment, we mean not only building the understanding and knowledge of the content, but also the confidence to make decisions and use those knowledge to make decisions and take action. We really emphasize throughout our materials a non-judgmental approach to helping lay out the information in an unbiased, credible way so people understand the full range of their choices and options and can choose the financial products or service that work for them in their current situation based on their own needs and financial goals. And we talk a lot about what it means, you know, in someone's current financial situation. And because of the crisis, the coronavirus, people are finding themselves often in new financial situations. So I'll be highlighting some tools that apply specifically to the current context and how people are using these tools with their clients, as they always have, and often hearing that people are using these tools themselves or with family members in a slightly different way. So the toolkit, which I'll get into a little additional detail in a moment, but the toolkit covers a wide range of financial topics. You'll see many themes overlap with topics my colleagues have presented on, And the purpose of the toolkit is to provide some additional contacts and tips for providers who are serving clients. So to help them think through how to use those specific tools with the people in the context of their work. So the toolkit contains a lot of easy to follow instructions, so you can be confident. You all may have a very strong content knowledge of the tools, but it may give some ideas of how to, reach different types of clients or different types of people, particularly if you may be dealing with new topics or clients in the current situation. In the toolkit, it also includes some suggestions on which tools can be used based on the situation and time available. So depending on whether you have 5 minutes with a person, 20 minutes, or it's a series of recurring meetings. So it will give you some suggestions there. And the toolkit is designed not as a curriculum that goes sequentially from one topic to another and you need to cover each piece before moving on to the next, but rather it's designed as a toolkit. So the topics are easily findable, accessible to bring the right content at the right time. There are some different assessment tools to look at to help easily figure out where to start with the particular person you're serving. And all of these tools, including the toolkits and other materials, are free and available online. So you can download and print copies, or I'll talk a bit about how to order hard copies. And in the current context, we're finding a lot of people working remotely and at home and not having access to printers or printed materials. So we're finding that our online resources and online tools are particularly helpful in this time. And in the bottom left of the screen, you'll see a link. So our tools can be found at consumerfinance.gov. If you look for the Practitioner Resources tab in the upper right, and then scroll kind of to the right-hand side and scroll down and look for the Your Money, Your Goals page. The toolkit itself is available in English, also Spanish and Mandarin Chinese. All of our materials are 508 compliant, so they're accessible to people with disabilities, people using screen readers, and are available in a variety of formats. Our online tools, one thing that we really like about them is they're fillable, so you can fill in the information online. They have auto-calculating functions, so you can either save or print out, or if you prefer, depending on the context, just print out and fill in by hand. Some of the other materials are available in other languages, from Spanish, Korean, Arabic, Chinese, Vietnamese, Haitian Creole, Filipino or Tagalog, and Russian, and through other links. And there's some audio files as well that are helpful for certain audiences. So now I will move on and just give a quick overview of the topics that are covered in the toolkit. You'll see it's organized in 9 modules, an introduction, and then module 1 focuses on setting goals. We find these sometimes surprisingly helpful in any context, and now as people are adjusting their goals, these might be particularly useful to you. Again, there's a variety of depth and detail, depending on whether you'll use the tools in a brief one-time meeting or an ongoing series of regular meetings. You'll see topics like savings, income, benefits is covered. There are a number of tools that do take into account asset limits if people are on public benefits. So we try to make sure these tools are relevant to audiences of a wide range of incomes and socioeconomic status. There are tools on paying bills, cash flow, getting through the month. We've got a really helpful cash flow calculator tool that may be helpful to you all who are probably more familiar with putting the pieces of all the budget together and really looking at it not as a simple kind of static monthly budget, but as that ongoing weekly cash flow. We also certainly cover debt, credit reports and scores, choosing financial products and services. And in this context, we are seeing that people are trying to find ways to minimize account fees, look at the best accounts. In some cases, people are setting up brand new accounts to receive payments or access services differently. And then Module 9 includes protecting your money, which touches on scams and a variety of the topics that other colleagues have covered as well. I'll move on to slide 37, which is the My Money Picture tool. So we certainly have adapted our tools to people who may have many different comfort levels discussing financial issues. And so you all may be more experienced or comfortable in diving into financial topics. But one thing that I think this assessment can be really helpful in times like this, when we may be talking about financial issues with people that we haven't typically talked about this with in the past. So the tools are designed to really, as I mentioned, be non-judgmental, lay out the range of topics. So for example, if you're using this type of tool in a conversation with family, starting in a very neutral way to have a conversation, not by saying, I think you need to do this, but really to lay out, here's the range of financial concerns that we see many people having. Let's narrow in and figure out which topics are most relevant to you in your current situation, and where do we go from here to answer them. So the the My Money Picture can be a great point to start the conversation as you look at people at whether they're looking at just struggling to get through the month, or setting a goal of buying a car, or improving their credit history, looking at how the credit reports may be affected in the current crisis, what steps they can take to, prevent damage to their credit or build their credit down the road. And as you go through the questions, the tool will help connect you to the module to get into the details and tools for addressing that particular topic. We see that some people use this tool as a starting point for an initial assessment or the first meeting with a client, or have others fill it out on their own while they're waiting for some next step in the services, or while they have a moment on hand. There are some other assessment tools for providers to kind of look at where you have the strongest knowledge, where you might want to enhance your content or help fill certain topics that you may want to strengthen in your repertoire. I'll move on to slide 38, which is a colorful slide showing the Your Money, Your Goals booklets. So in the toolkit, which is a large over 200-page document with 43 tools, can be really useful in many situations. But if you're looking for something to work kind of on a small scale, more one-on-one with a client, and perhaps have them take home, complete, and bring back or use with you for regular check-ins, we find that this set of booklets is a really popular tool. The booklets cover kind of a smaller set of topics. So one, Behind on Bills, is also available in English and Spanish. One booklet on debt, credit, savings booklet that came out recently. And then some of the booklets are specially formatted, so if anyone is working with the reentry population, people in correctional facilities or justice-involved communities, we have some resources available for them. And so this set of resources is good for working with people on a particular topic. I neglected to mention a couple other guides, which are our companion guides for special populations. So we do have, in addition to the toolkit, some specialized materials that are designed specifically for, one for people with disabilities, one for Native communities, and one for reentry or people with criminal records. So those have some specialized tools with examples and language that are specifically relevant to those populations. And again, all of these materials are available at the link on the bottom left, consumerfinance.gov/yourmoneyyourgoals. For the printed resources, you can order them generally in batches of 25 or 50. You can order them online and they'll be shipped for free. Our shipping process currently has been taking a little longer than normal. It's normally about 4 to 6 weeks, but it is up and running and you can go ahead and order those online. To give a detailed example of the one of the booklets. This is from the table of contents from Behind on Bills. It shows how the tools are organized. So if you see the blue and green tools can help people build a clear picture of their income and spending. They're more kind of ongoing tools. The yellow tools are related to goal setting. They look at short-term strategies for getting extra money, and then the red tools can be used for immediate challenges and needs. So you'll see here making tough choices in tight months, responding to debt collectors, and looking at knowing who else can I turn to for help. So I wanted to give one example of a tool we're finding to be very useful in the last few months. The tool focused on prioritizing bills. So this is looking at finding an immediate solution. It's not long-term planning, but immediate needs to really look at what might happen if people are falling behind or not able to pay their bills this month. So if you look at this is a typical tool layout. It'll have a few bullets talking about the purpose of the tool, understanding what might happen, assessing the trade-offs, and then making a plan. If you go on to slide 41, you'll see how people can fill out this tool. It's also available to download online, but really here again, providing prompts to help walk through making sure people are keeping in mind what are the things I need to do to keep or get a job, what are ongoing expenses like insurance the bills that will be coming in, things I need to stay housed and keep utilities connected, or obligations that I need to pay. Some of these may have legal consequences, for example, child support or court-ordered fines or obligations. So here again, we're not recommending what choices or what actions people take, but we're laying it out so people can look at the bills and the risks and the trade-offs of what would happen if I do or don't pay this bill. So they can make those choices for themselves with a full understanding of the consequences. I'll go on to slide 42. The tool on dealing with debt collectors. And again, this is an example of an urgent situation when debt collectors are calling. And there could be a variety of reasons. It could be an outstanding legitimate debt. There's also the possibility of scams. So it's really important these days for people to verify whether or not the claim is valid. And again, the tools typically provide some background, and then, for example, knowing how to dispute the claim. It will link to some letters, forms, materials that people will need to have on hand to dispute the claim and help walk through the steps of what to do next. So here again, our role at the CFPB is making sure that people understand their rights and then know what steps they can take. Going on to slide 43, the income tracker, a fairly standard tool, but again, in stressful times like this, people may just need to lay it out and see it on paper so they're not overwhelmed with everything running through their mind as they're ordering supplies or going to the grocery store, homeschooling their kids, keeping up with work. So the standard income tracker to get a picture of income and resources. Remember when funds are coming in, think about planning and avoiding gaps. And if we go on to the detailed tool on page 44, again, this is to make sure people are thinking about the prompts in there, help them look at all sources of income and resources. So it may be from a primary job, they can add lines for additional jobs, government programs, which may be new to people, certain new government benefits that they don't have experience with in the past, disability benefits, looking at factoring any financial support from family, gifts, inheritances, or other resources that may be coming in during the month. On slide 45, an example of the spending tracker, again, looks at the outflow of money, and these can all be put together in a cash flow tool that I mentioned. But again, looking at spending going out, analyzing, identifying areas to cut back, and some work on goal setting to keep you on track. On slide 46, I just want to highlight again the approach to the tools and the thinking behind these resources. The spending tracker helps people look at what's important to you. The prompts, the simple icons that should be useful for people with limited education levels, language barriers, trying to be very clear and simple, and just remind people to think through all of the different categories of expenses, whether it's immediate, utilities, debt, eating out, health expenses, helping others through charity, expenses related to pets, making sure everything is in one place to really track those totals. And in our training, we often ask people, why do you think the cell phone is listed first? And the answer is that we're not saying cell phone is more or less important than anything else. It's simply alphabetical. And so again, it shows that the non-judgmental approach behind this is just to lay out the information and then let people choose for themselves how they align their spending or make adjustments in a way that aligns with their own values and their situation. The final tool that I'll mention is a bill calendar, which is of course a very simple way to think about payments, timing, and if you go on to slide 48, the details, again, very simple and can be filled out online, but as people lay out the timing of expenses, particularly if they're making changes in how they pay bills, whether it's shifting from mailing in payments to paying online, or as people make adjustments, for example, we're seeing with housing expenses or certain large expenses, sometimes people may be able to negotiate and break their payment, depending on their landlord and their living situation, break one large payment into two smaller payments over the month. So again, this really simple tool can help people really lay out when the expenses are going out and income is coming in to align the timing. Finally, just our contact information. Again, the Your Money, Your Goals website. And then if you have specific questions about the resources or about upcoming training opportunities, you can email those directly to us, our team at yourmoneyyourgoals@consumerfinance.gov. You can sign up for information about upcoming webinars on the specific modules and resources. And if you happen to be using these tools already, we always love to hear stories about how they're being used, what additional ideas and suggestions you have for us. So thanks so much for joining us today, and I will turn it over now to my colleague, Leslie Jones.
Thank you so much, Jill. I really appreciate it. My focus at the Bureau is youth financial education. So I'm going to share with you some of the resources that you might be able to share with other people so that they might introduce some financial literacy during the next few months with the children and students and that are in their lives. If you can turn to slide 52, please. There are 3 building blocks of youth financial capability as defined by the Bureau. And these 3 building blocks of youth financial capability are executive functioning skills, financial habits and norms, and financial knowledge and decision-making skills. What's wonderful about these, I call them the 3 buckets of youth financial capability, is we discovered in our research that if children have these 3 skill sets, these building blocks, they will most likely become adults who have adult financial well-being. And so since that is our goal to get that to happen, we're sharing this with you today. It's broken down into 3 developmental stages: early childhood, ages 3 to 5, middle childhood, ages 6 to 12, and adolescence and young adulthood, ages 13 through 21. And so for executive functioning, it's very simply being able to tell yourself no. It's having self-control, planning, problem solving, and being able to wait. So if you're all thinking to yourself right now, gee, that's what we've been doing for the last 6 weeks or so, is practicing our executive functioning skills, you are absolutely correct. And so having that ability to wait means that those things that you want to do in your future, the buying a house, buying a car, having a happy retirement, all becomes possible if you're able to tell yourself no throughout your lifetime and wait for the random reward that comes from investing and saving and hoping for the best. The second thing, financial habits and norms, are those healthy money habits that we develop, those rules of thumb that we use to navigate our financial lives. For example, it's that when do we pay our bills? Beginning of the month, or as soon as they come in, end of the month? What are our rules of thumb for donations and sharing our money with others? What are our rules of thumb for tipping? Some people are, more like 15, 20%. Some people are 20, 25%. What creates those rules of thumb? What causes you to have them? And if you think about yourself and your parents, or yourself and your siblings, you probably realize that your rules of thumb are different than theirs, and that's fine. But that's what we can do as adults. We can help the children in our lives learn how to develop their own rules of thumb for how they want to navigate their financial life, what they want to save for, what are their priorities. And then that last column, financial knowledge and decision-making skills, that one's the one that we do so often and so commonly. It's teaching kids that factual knowledge, that need to comparison shop, that need to get the most current information in order to make our decisions. And that is quite often the focus of the financial literacy education we give now, so that executive functioning skills and those financial habits and norms are something that are a little bit more unique, that we don't think about as much when we're teaching our kids. And with financial habits and norms, because we say it's not so much about your being able to do those math calculations as have good rules of thumb and good habits, it's a slight twist on what some other people focus in on when they're teaching financial literacy. If we can go to slide 53, please. So what I want to do is I want to share with you these resources. I wanted to give you our overarching thought process and the research that we've done. Everything that we have built for youth financial education is built on that building blocks research. And we have it again in 3 buckets: young children, ages 3 to 5, school-age children, ages 6 to 12, and our teens and young adults, ages 13 through 21. So what we have to offer and what I'm going to share with you today fit into one of those buckets. Sometimes they crisscross. So if we can go to slide 54, please. This one I love. It's for young children. It's part of our Money As You Grow, and our Money As You Grow site is help for parents and caregivers. You don't have to be a money expert. We have tips and activities here that they can use to teach children money habits, skills, attitudes, and learn how to have money conversations with kids. This one particularly is one of my favorites because it works through so many developmental stages. It's just a piece of paper. You put it on a table, you pull some change out of a jar, out of your pocket, and the first thing that the child does, the youngest child does, is just sort them: pennies, dimes, nickels, quarters. At that next developmental stage, what we would do is have them count how many coins they have. I have 2 of these, I have 6 of these, I have 4 of these. The next developmental stage actually totals how much money they have. So I have 2 cents, I have 10 cents, I have $1, that kind of thing. And then at that next developmental stage, they're actually totaling how much they have for all of the change. And then maybe we're starting to have those conversations about what we can do with that money. Do we want to share it with other people and donate it? Do we want to buy something for ourselves? Do we want to save? Those kinds of questions can be asked and answered. So one sheet of paper, and we can take ourselves from a 3-year-old up to probably like a 10-year-old easily and still have some fun. All right, if we can go please to slide 55. So with this next one, these are conversation starters that we have available on the website. For a lot of families, we have family events that should lead to money talks, don't often, and we want to help you have those money conversations. So it's that getting a pet. A lot of times the decision about getting a pet is not just about whether or not we have allergies or something like that, but it's financial. It's the realization as an adult that owning a pet is a significant financial and emotional commitment, and how to have that conversation about what that cost is like is something that a lot of parents don't know where to start. Buying a car, that financial impact. Suddenly we've got this payment to make. Why are we paying with a credit card? Why are we not paying with cash? How do we talk to our kids about that? Moving to a new home, paying bills, just a variety of things that commonly happen in families, and having some structure about how to have those conversations with our kids can be very helpful. And you can find that all on the CFPB website. All right, if you can go to slide 56, please. So then I want to talk about what we can do with our teens and our preteens, and that is easily find youth financial literacy activities. We have short activities. They're designed for the classroom, but parents can use them to guide instruction of middle school and high school age children. And each activity comes with a teacher guide and supporting student material, so it's really easy to implement them even if you are not an experienced financial educator. We have a great filter and search tool here. You can either search by a certain topic by typing in text in our search tool, or you can filter, and you can filter by individual activities, you can filter by the grade level, you can filter by the duration, 15-minute chunks, 45-minute chunks, or an 80-minute chunk. So it's there's a lot of ability to be able to sort by whatever you're interested in sorting by. And let me share with you an example of a couple of these activities. If you can go to page 57, please. For this one's for school age children, so it's more for middle school children. And for this one, it's an example. This was just very simply exploring government agencies. And the United States has many government agencies that protect and support the American people. And I've got 3 of the samples here. One situation in the scenario is our home was terribly damaged in a hurricane. My family needs immediate help with a place to stay. Which government agency should we contact? And given the options that are there in the worksheet, the students will hopefully select FEMA. Then we have my cousin needs help figuring out how to get an auto loan. What agency has tools to help them? Hopefully you'll be able to guide them to select the CFPB. And then finally, my grandma is about to retire. What government agency will help her with her retirement benefits? And they will learn that that's what the Social Security Administration does for us. All right, so that's an example of one of the middle school activities. It's just a short one. It's supposed to be 15, 20 minutes, but it just gives them an idea of if I'm going to search for information to help me out, where do I go if I'm looking for a government agency? If you can go to slide 58, please. On this slide, this one's for a sample of one for our high school students, and this one is getting banked. So the whole idea is it's time to select a local bank or credit union to be able to start putting our money into and having it be protected and insured and things like that, and gives them some ideas of what to consider when they're choosing that financial institution. And so they'll pick a local financial institution. They will do the research into a variety of factors that they should be looking at when they're making this decision. And a lot of it's going to go back to what their needs are and what's important to them, going back to that financial habits and norms that I was talking about before. And they're going to learn common banking vocabulary, which helps build their financial knowledge and decision-making skills. And by putting their money in a financial institution and starting to earn interest, they're going to start learning how to tell themselves no and build their executive functioning skills. See how cleverly these things fit together with our research? All right, if you can go to the last, my last slide, which is slide 59, please. This one, Nelson told you earlier about misadventures in money management and how it was built for service members, actually pre-service members, the deferred entry people, and then has now being used by people who are newly into our new service members. Well, what we did in conjunction with them is we built activity guides, teacher guides for the classroom so that JROTC and ROTC teachers could be able to use MIM in their classrooms. It's really hard to be able to go through all of the characters yourself and know all the questions to ask to prompt learning for students and young people. So this is that guide. So if you're an adult that's been in close proximity to a child and that child loves video games and you just wanted to talk to them about the video game but not do the video game yourself, that's what this guide is like. So you download the teacher guide and suddenly in the student worksheet, and suddenly you have questions to ask the child about this particular simulation. Cruz, I think, tries to buy a car and talking about what questions he should ask and what choices he had, and just have a better conversation with the child than you might otherwise if you just said to them, so what was it like? What did Cruz do? You'll actually know what the questions to ask. And so we have these guides, and then we have the student worksheets that extend the learning. So Cruz tries to buy a car. He goes through a variety of situations, and the child, as they're going through it, will make certain decisions, and then that ends. But then you can hand them this worksheet, and they're going through a situation in which they're giving 3 different buying options, and they have to figure out which one they would select and why, and they figure out what they do for both Cruz and themselves. So we're trying to help provoke their financial habits and norms and figure out, well, what would I do? What would be my priorities? Cruz's priorities were X. Well, mine are Y, and this is the car that would be better for me, even though that car would be better for Cruz. So we've been able to take something that is fabulous, because I agree with Nelson that mismatches and money management is wonderful, but we're able to make it an educational tool for the classroom also. All right, so that is what I wanted to cover with you, talking about our resources for youth financial education. And now I will turn it back over to whoever's next, and I don't know. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It's Leslie. I should have told you. It's Heather next. Can you all hear me?
We can. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, that's all right. No worries. I just wasn't sure if I was muted or not by you. Thank you so much. If you wouldn't mind going to slide 60, I just wanted to cover 2 other slides quickly before we go to questions. Okay, so I just wanted to make everyone aware that a new publication just came out this week at the Bureau, and it's on the early effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on credit applications. The link on the slide here gives you the link to the entire report, and I'm going to just show one slide that's an overview, but there's much more information and many more charts and graphs that go with this. I say this because it's sort of bad news, as you might expect, but hopefully it's temporary bad news. But we at least need to know what's going on and to have the information. If you would go to slide 61, please. So just so you can be aware what was done here, not by me, I say we, but my dad used to say give a mouse in your pocket. It's really our excellent research team. And this is, as I said, available at the link, and we have other data and research available as well to you if you're looking for maybe opportunities to use some of our data to develop a proposal for the ACSPE annual conference. I noticed they were having a call for paper, so you could certainly use some of the data we have in our consumer complaint database to do something like that. The overall effect of credit applications, essentially they have a panel where they can view anonymous data on consumers that have opted in, and they looked at what's going on with auto loans applications, new mortgage applications or mortgage originations, revolving credit, and then some other unspecified types of credit app inquiries. And essentially they use the credit reports to look at the inquiries that were hitting and how they changed basically from the 2nd week in March to the 3rd week in March to the 4th week in March, which is in the blue. So you can see that the blue is the most recent data, and it was significant drops in auto, significant drops in new mortgages and significant drops in revolving and other credit. So there's more information that breaks this out into more detail, and the story, you know, it tells more of a story of what's going on, and they're continuing to track this information. So I just wanted to at least share that with you all, as I know that many of you do research and publish, that you might find it interesting to go to this report, and it is a new report that just came out on our website. That concludes what I wanted to say, and from here we're prepared to start taking questions. Summer, do you have any questions for anyone that spoke?
Well, you guys are typing your questions into chat. We haven't had any questions so far other than, will you guys get a copy of the slides? Yes, the slides will be sent out along with a link to the recording later today. Also, for those who are seeking continuing education units with AFCPE, the completion code is Consumer Finance 2020. That's Consumer Finance 2020. Capitalization doesn't matter, spaces do, no spaces. So any questions out there for our wonderful presenters? I will say while we're waiting for questions, we had a lot of positive chat in the chat box, especially about your money, your goals, and about the financial wellness tool. We have a question. Can you speak briefly to your YouTube channel? Which is apparently youtube.com user
Yes.
CFPB video.
Yes, this is Heather. We have a very robust YouTube channel, and we publish some videos that are actually professionally produced on particular topics. Like we recently had one come out on mortgages that is popular, so you can actually find that by doing a search. You can find most of our videos very easily by either going to our webpage and doing a search, or going to cfpb.gov and doing a search. And of course, you can also go to YouTube and do a search for CFPB videos. We also publish all of the past webinars that we do in the FinEx program on there. We had a little hiatus just because we have a new tool and we were having some recording issues, but we believe we've worked that out. So future webinars, we should be putting them back up. So there's lots of good information, both professional videos, past recordings. There are recordings of conferences that were held by other divisions that are up on our YouTube channel as well. So encourage you to visit that, and lots of good information. And also, just so you're aware, any of the webinars that you download from, for example, the FinEx page or anything, everything on our website is public information. You're free to take it and repurpose it for your own use with your clients. The only thing we ask is that if you put your logo on it, that you take ours off. And if you change it, that you also take our logo off. But other than that, you're able to take all of our information and reuse it. That's why we do what we do. We're trying to make your job easier as practitioners. So you can take the slides, you can look at recordings of webinars and use the comments that you hear as a way to present to your own audiences. That's the whole purpose of the CFPB, is to get this information to you for use with consumers.
Excellent. Another question. I am hearing on the street that landlords are using the IRS page to see if their tenants are receiving their stimulus checks. What's the CFPB's advice on what consumers should do?
We're not really able to comment on that in terms of advice. I hadn't heard that particular spin on it, but I have heard some of the challenges between people that are renting and whether or not they are getting any breaks from their landlords, depending on what the landlords are receiving. But that's not really our purview to comment on, so I can't say much about that.
This is Erin. I would just add that we do have a blog coming out in the next couple of weeks on CARES Act provisions for renters. So just keep an eye on that coronavirus page on our website, and keep an eye out for that particular blog. I know it's in the final process of approvals now. And we do usually send a weekly email with what our new blog posts are. So if you're not on one of our CFPB email lists, now would be a good time to join.
Okay. How would people find the MIMM for Youth page? Is there an easy address, or just Google it?
Well, you can go to mimm.com, but Nelson or Leslie, would you like to add anything to that?
It's .com or .gov, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's .gov.
Are there any updates on the financial coaching research report that can be shared?
No, I'm not aware of any updates on the financial coaching report. If anyone else is, please chime in. But I will tell you that we do have a practitioner's blog that's coming out that's talking about virtual coaching and how to use some of our resources if you're completely online with clients, and a few other tips around that. So that is expected to be published either, at this point, it'd probably be Monday. So it could possibly come out tomorrow. But if you watch our blog page, it'll definitely be out Monday or Tuesday of next week. So that's something to keep an eye on related to coaching.
Okay, I have someone asking if this information can be used on a radio show. And I guess I would like to extend that just to ask, is this information basically considered public domain to be used any way you want, as long as we don't use your logo?
That's correct. The information is public domain, and you can use it the way you would like to. You can use it as it is with our logo if you don't change it or don't, make make it appear that we're in partnership in any way. If you want to take it off and repurpose it and brand it in your own way, then that's fine. And of course, if you change anything on it, we ask that you rebrand it. But absolutely, it's all public information.
And hi, this is Leslie. I just wanted to mention, and I apologize if it's been mentioned already, and I'm just reminding people, but consumerfinance.gov /coronavirus has a lot of information that we have pulled from various sorts into a single location. So that can be very useful. And I believe it's been translated into at least 4 different languages, including English. So that's something to use to get information on financial aspects of the coronavirus.
And I'm not sure if this has been answered, to just be on the safe side. How does one access the coaching blog?
If you actually go to our website and do a search on blog, I'm going to try to find it quickly, and I don't have access to the chat at the moment, but we have a blog page, and all of our blogs are there. I think it's also going to be on the coronavirus page because it's related to that. So if you land on our consumerfinance.gov, you'll see the banner, and it'll have the coronavirus page information in there. Click that banner, and you should be able to get to the blogs. If somebody else has the direct link and wants to share it, I'd appreciate it.
The address to our blogs is consumerfinance.gov /about-us/blog.
Thank you. And then we had another request for the money management misadventures in money management. That is MIMM.gov. Okay. Any other questions from the chat? There's a lot of thank yous, by the way. So thank you very much. You did a great job. A lot of folks saying thank you. And thank you
for having us.
That's what it. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it.
Okay. We'll look forward to doing some more work with you, hopefully in the future. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And if you have any questions, you can also let us know, and have a great day.